Yo, yo, Carl here doing a bonus Q&A, clearing of the throat as we dive into this. Seems like the sound is working. Everything is off to a good start. We are ready to go. So let's dive straight into this, shall we, and get it going. So before we start the Q&A, reminder, disclaimer, all information from the Vitruvian Health myself in regards to training nutrition therapy is for educational purposes only and is meant to diagnose, it is not meant to diagnose or treat any health conditions and is not a replacement for treatment or care from a healthcare provider. If you have any concerns, consult your local GP or a doctor or a healthcare provider. If you're looking for someone, check out Dr. Amy Mason would be my recommendation, or Brendan Smith from Village Remedies. So you've got Winnie Caro and Village Remedies. And hello, person who's watching. So let's dive into Q&A time, where any questions you have, training, lifestyle, training, nutrition, I look to answer. So we had a few bonus ones. I have a client who loves her questions, and I love to answer them. So first question is, if isometrics is stronger than the movement, why do lat pull downs with D handles feel easier with the mag grip? So for those that are wondering, what are we talking about? So I have a 12-week pull-up program to help people get into pull-ups. So if you can't do a pull-up and you'd like to get one, reach out and we can put you on that 12-week program. So what we look to do in this program is we have 2 days a week where we do variation of a pull-up. So usually it might be machine-based pull-up, or isometric holds, or eccentric overload. So you're working slowly through the movement. You then finish that, go over to the lat pull down, and you work the movement of the pull-up. You might only do 26 kilos, 35, that's fine. That one's not so much about lifting heavy loads there. That one's about working the movement. Typically, I like to put 12 reps. 8 to 12 is pretty good to work that movement. And then over every 3 to 4 weeks, when we change the program, we adjust the rep variation. So titrates down, so by the end of 12 weeks, you're doing 2 to 4 reps comfortably. Then from that, we go over, so it's a tricep, 3 exercises, over to a bench, and then we do a shoulder press. So that's going to work that movement pattern nicely there. So you're working it from a pull and a push. So the isometric holds are where we hold a fixed position, training the shoulders to pull themselves back and down. We also put you in the weakest position, but because you're holding it, you're naturally stronger because you're not having to move or do anything else except to squeeze as hard as you can. Now, when it comes to D handles, the grip, we grab it like so it loads evenly through the forearms. But when we use a mag grip, it favors the flexors, so it's actually tighter, so it's easier to contract, and stronger, so it's easier with a mag bar. It's called a maximum advantage grip device. Tend not to use it all the time because grip requires variation. And a lot of the time when people have issues with their grip strength, it's because they're always grabbing the same thing. So we want variations, so we're working different forms of your grip. Remember, the lat pull down is not the be-all and end-all. It is a tool to assist with the movement, and we use it with variation for the grip device. Number 2, I supervise tennis 2 times a week for 60 minutes. You do audibles. Should I do anything beneficial? You're already training 4 times a week, and you're doing running about 4 times a week as well. You could do like light mobility, but listening to audibles is great because it provides you knowledge and growth, which is only going to help you further in careers and in life. So pretty good. Number 3, so there's a picture, and what happens is one foot is turned out this way and the other one's this way. And the question is, why is there an imbalance? So it could be that you have restriction on this side. So there's the glutes are a bit tight, or if the glutes are tight, they pull that way. Maybe your adductors and your hips are a bit tight, it's pulling that foot inwards. Maybe you naturally, in your femur socket, and your birth, you're pulled by the leg, pulled the hip out. And so what's going on is you'll find that your external rotation is limited on one side. So if you capsule the hip, one side's here and one side there, you're naturally going to see that. So it's really interesting when people have a blanket statement saying, it should be this. It's like, in a perfect world, it should be. But from a structural perspective, it's hard to know. But I know when we did some testing and we did some glute work, then it did come back out. So it could be that that side's just lacking a bit of strength on there. Could also, naturally, for example, you sit with that left leg crossed, so that's naturally going to be externally rotating more. So if you sit like that all day, every day, well, then this is going to naturally be more open. So then this one would be like up here. So something you could do is just change the way you sit. Variety of slice of life. Number 4, one foot externally rotates more than the other. Why? Structural imbalance. It could be a weakness on one side's tighter than the other in certain muscles. 3 is you're born that way. Cool. 4, maybe the things you do, maybe once you're rotated to one side, so it naturally favors more external rotation than the other. So yeah. 5, breathing. What should I know about it? Well, number 1, in, out. So the 3 biggest problems I see with breathing is 1, people tend to overcomplicate it. 2 is that it's actually natural, but the thing is, in a stress state that we all go through, we tend to and so then there's actually not a wind down or unwind therapy or treatment. So if you read, there's a book, Why Zebras Don't Have Ulcers. It just talks about how naturally animals have an instinct of how to release all their stress. As humans, we actually don't have that. So that second thing to really get you out of that stressed out state is actually having a wind down routine at the end of the day. Or shout, let it all out, squeeze your fist, really just release it all, so then your body can go back to its breathing, which is number 3, is not utilizing the breath through its full 3 dynamic response. So it should go out both ways, so front and side, but also upwards. So breathing through the stomach, the chest then rises as well. You feel your back spreading out, and then exhale. Really nice to do that with shoes off in the park. It's just in the sun. So breathing, there's many ways to do it. And something to know also about breathing is when it comes to training with the big compound movements, we use a Valsalva breath where we go, and it's like we block to the throat, and that creates intra-abdominal pressure. Really good for people that have good blood pressure. If you've got high blood pressure, I don't recommend it, because obviously when you do that, you can increase your blood pressure, which can be something to be concerned about. So you should be seeing a local GP, but you should be working with a trainer that takes your blood pressure regularly to assess and track what's going on. If you want to get that to decrease over time, that's where you're working on nutrition and lifestyle changes as well. Next, my partner always ends up with DOMS, especially after chest day in his session. So especially myself, I don't notice it. What's going on? Any thoughts? Well, number 1, nutrition. Yours might be cleaner than his, so he's naturally in more of an inflamed state. Number 2 is that he might be doing more volume than you. So typically, if you were to look at someone's program, what's causing DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness, which is like trauma to the muscle or muscle damage, everyone gets it. But if he's doing, say, 10 sets and you're doing 5 sets, he might just be doing more volume in his program. And every time he changes that program, it increases the volume. So that's a stressor in itself. He may be progressing in loads too quickly, because a lot of people think DOMS is the way to go. But honestly, if it affects performance, then not really. Because then you don't train as hard over time. But sometimes what happens is people do press work, their range shortens just so they can lift heavier. So it does cause some more stress on the muscle. 3, he might just be a lucky individual where his body gets DOMS all the times, and you might be even luckier and you don't. But both causing muscle damage, some people just experience a lot more. And you'll find it can be body part specific. So like, for example, I did with a friend, we did 30 sets on biceps. So I've only gotten sore in my biceps like 3 times. We did 30 sets of bicep work, and I felt my biceps for like half a day, and then I was good. But do 20 sets on chest and triceps, so like 10-10, I'm hurting for days. So 30 in the biceps, pushing close to like 2 failure, 30 sets versus 10 and 10. Well, you'd think I'd get a lot more DOMS in the bicep, but everyone's got sort of their own body part as well. So those are some of the things. What else could there be? He's maybe naturally tighter, so he's got restricted range of motion. You're now training through a greater range, so you've now probably taught him to do it. So now, because he's probably learned that, he's now training through a greater range of motion, which is causing more stretch on the muscle. Which also, you get people that get stretch DOMS, like they stretch their muscles so much they actually get DOMS the next day. Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint, but sometimes some people, there's certain body parts I've noticed that get it, and for others, not so much. Creatine and protein supplements, your opinion? They're good. So when it comes to creatine, people talk about how it's one of the #1 like top research supplements out there. Increases cellular swelling, so we can build a bit more muscle and help with recovery. The lady who's using it's actually helping with recovery. We've noticed a huge improvement. The body naturally produces it, but you're giving it a physiological dosage, so it can benefit performance. The other thing to know is that you do require a greater intake of water. So the challenge with that is knowing that you need more water. Sometimes you can get really thirsty and you can keep that up. So make sure you keep hydrated. For me, there are high responders. So I personally don't like creatine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just when I take creatine, I need to drink like 10 liters to 12 liters of water, and it's super uncomfortable. And then I get really cracked lips and headaches. Yeah, I'm one of the rare few people that get like heaps of negative side effects from it, which, yeah, cool, I put on muscle, but at what expense? I really don't like having cracked lips, and it's painful, like super thick, and it only takes a week for that to happen. So I'm not personally a fan of creatine, but I've recommended it to lots of people. Like if you're wanting for muscle hypertrophy, like for strength, I take I think it's like 0.01 gram per kilo of body weight. I don't remember the number. So average female is like 2-3 grams. So I would do 1.5 pre-workout, 1.5 grams post-workout for muscle growth. And if it's for strength, I just do 1.5 for pre-workout. So it's in the bloodstream, ready to go. The body can use it. So for building muscle, I take it post-workout as well. Strength and the pre. And for guys, it's like 2-3 grams. So yeah, there's some dosages. Protein. A lot of people think more is better. I just recommend 20 grams females, 40 grams for males. So 1 scoop, 1.5 scoops. It's great meal replacement. I'm kind of upset because Sabito used to be a company I use, and now they're going to stop. Sucks. So I've got to source another one. Good products are hard. They're hard to find. Yeah, they help you capitalize on the anabolic window, but the thing is you can always eat food as well. So it's really good convenience for those that have a hard time eating and digesting meats, and just looking for a source of protein, because some people find it hard to get that in. Like I know for myself, I used to do meat 4 times a day. I've actually now playing some variations of protein sources, so like gluten-free Wheat Bix with YoPro in the morning with some fruit, some almond milk, and then more meat through the lunchtime, and then we'll mix up between plant-based proteins and meat in the evening. And then I do a shake once or twice a day as well, depending on time frames. So they're really good, especially for the time poor person. So if you're someone like, typically, you sit down, breathe, that'll stimulate digestive enzymes. If not, like Semgest, something you can use, or digestive enzymes. I can't remember the brand at the moment. It's like Doctor's Best or something. There's heaps of digestive proteins, enzymes you get. A lot of protein powders now have digestive enzymes in them. I'm more skeptical of that because it's like quality-based protein. Should it need digestive enzymes? Shouldn't. But a lot of people are like, our product's really good. And I'm like, okay, well, why do you need all these things in it? So it's something to be wary of. But usually when you eat a meal, you should be taking 10 deep breaths, stimulates that cephalic phase, saliva, that helps break down food, and then you slowly eat your food sitting down. A lot of people with time poor, or we want to be time efficient. So that's 20 minutes. Or if I did a shake, it takes me a minute. Have a banana with it, it's 2 minutes, and then I get another 18 minutes for myself. So it's really good for convenience. So yes. Next one is gym, run, work routine instead of training. How would one make this fit? Well, I recommend training 4 times a week. So work out that time, block out 90 minutes, so you have time to warm up, shower, clean, all that, and then work out your other times that you're going to run. So there's 3 types of running. You've got intensity, so intervals, that's where your heart rate's going to be quite high. Moderate, where you're looking to maintain a steady amount. So if, for example, 130 to 155 was your aerobic window, and then above that's anaerobic, you're wanting to sit in this range for a period of time. And what will happen is that will steadily increase. Your aerobic capacity improves, your ability to handle oxygen, so you can work at a higher interval rate. And then the low is where you're just sticking to a speed limit. So say 10 kilometers an hour, if you can run at 14, great, but stick at 10, and you're building that cadence ability. So if you can run, I usually recommend this for a lot of people, like if you're gonna run 40 kilometers, 41.25 for the marathon, what I would suggest is you run that at like a slower pace. It's gonna take longer. So if you can run it in 2-3 hours, you go at slower cadence, it takes 4 hours, but you're conditioning your muscles, that force, that load to handle that, and also for time. So then when you go at that faster pace, you like, hell, if anyone runs for 4 hours and then does it in 3, well, it's much easier for themselves. Yes, you're running faster and at a higher level, but you can endure that a little bit longer. So I like to go in 3 different phases: intensity, moderate, and low. And they have different intentions and purposes. Usually low is just someone from getting A to B, because you can do that any day of the week. It's also quite good for like a week before an event. So if you do get DOMS or discomfort, you can manage that before the event. So for example, what we've done is we've got Tuesday, Wednesday train, Friday, Saturday train, and then we do low run on the Wednesday, so we can train upper body. Because we also train legs on Tuesday. Then we have a moderate run on Thursday, so it's working more in intervals, building that capacity. Then we've got legs on Friday, and then we get the low run Saturday, and then the intense runs on Sunday. So that's how we break it up. So we always have Monday off, which is awesome. Superset, what's the point? Pairing 2 exercises together. For those that are wondering why I just did that, it's because the sound just changed in the gym. It's good. So the purpose of supersets is to combine 2 exercises together. The first variation is where you pair an overload method. So you might go pull-ups, so you work back and the biceps, and then you superset that with the dumbbell curls. So you're fatiguing the bicep, so challenging the back to work that a little bit harder. The second type of superset is where you pair groups together. So that's where you might train the back, take about 60 seconds. The front, interior, will upregulate in strength to compensate for fatigue on the other side, so you can keep that intensity up. So what will happen is each round should find you get a little bit stronger, which is pretty cool. My favorite one is to do shoulder press with striking cobras. Not sure what that is? Check out our exercise archive. Then the third type of superset is where you're using it for more flow. So in the sense of you train your chest, then you go train your legs. So when your chest is resting, your legs are working. So it's a nice one. So for time efficiency, you get in, get out. So it's 3 ways of doing supersets. So usually it's for time efficiency, and it's also just to keep moving, because I don't like sitting still for 5 minutes. Some people do, is to its own. Why not just do a giant superset all over? So typically in training, there are certain methods. You've got straight sets where you do 1 exercise at a time. So you're managing that fatigue. Supersets, different variations. Then you've got trisets, 3 exercises combined together. That can be to overload 1 body part. You can work 3 different variations that all kind of support one another, or just 3 different exercises completely just because you can. And then giant sets, which is 4 and above, which is the circuits. So superset, you can do a superset giant set, which is where you might do chest back and then quads hamstring. So that hits the whole body, but you're working on managing 2 exercises that work together and then another 2. So you can definitely do it. So you need a lot of equipment, and bringing 4 towels to the gym, just to climb everything and having to discuss with everyone. Oh God, I hate those people. I've got 1 more set, bro. And then you look at them and they're like sitting there on their phone. You're like, dude, just get off your phone. Let me do my set. And they just tend not to be that person. So I'm like, and you let that person in, and then they'll just claim it and they'll sit there on their phone, and it's like, cool, well, I could just murder someone, but that's a no-no. So that's why I just don't do it unless we have a reason for it. So the reason for giant sets can be to body composition, for time efficiency, get it in, get it out, for building someone's capacity. So capacity and stimulation of hypertrophy. So to build muscle, you've got progressive overload over time. You've got controlled range of motion, time and attention, and no pain. So when looking to build a muscle, sometimes we've got all 3 variables controlled, but progressive overload comes in the form of reps, sets, load, and tempo. So if you've done everything, the only last thing to squeeze the juice in the timeline that we have is just to do more exercises so we can get more volume in, then that's where the art of program design comes in. So for example, I might go back squats to lying hamstring curl to walking lunges to single leg hamstring curl into pull-ups to bench press into lat pull down into dumbbell press. So I can hit 8 exercises back to back to back, literally 30 seconds a piece, and then I rest like 2-3 minutes, and then do it all again. So that's pretty good. So doing one exercise at a time, you can definitely do that. One overload method you can do is in a straight set is you could do chest, like bench, dumbbell press, chest flies. So that's technically 9 sets of chest back to back to back. So that's managing that fatigue. And the other way you could do it is you could alternate between chest back. So then there's some level of fatigue, but then you recover and then repeat again. The next one is, how would you summarize your philosophy on nutrition? My philosophy on nutrition is different to a lot of people, because a lot of people like there's good food, there's bad food, but like this water is bad. Cool. If we put it here at this table, and we watched it, and if we just did this for an hour, I guarantee you this would not move. So bad means maybe it would do something to me. It doesn't. People give words meaning, which they don't analyze themselves. They're like, oh, it's bad. The reason why a lot of food is bad is maybe because it's saturated, it's trans fat. Someone told them it was bad for them, so now they have that opinion that everything is bad. Also good, and people are like, oh, berries are good for you. Cool, well, if you ate 10 kilos of berries, I guarantee it would do something that's probably not ideal. So everything in moderation is to be understandable. But the thing is, like, there are certain foods that are more macro, micronutrient rich versus not so much. So, you know, we could have, like, there's a saying, a carb is a carb is a carb, but 50 grams of sugar versus 50 grams from rice versus 50 grams of macro weight of potato. One, they all weigh differently. Two, some have more fiber, some don't. And three, they'll enter the body very differently. Like pure sugar spikes blood sugar up and then it will crash, where the other ones, it'll gradually spike up and then drop down. So they all have benefits at different times in body composition and training, which we can definitely take advantage of when we know. So food is good nor bad, it's just how you use it. Anything in excess is always not ideal because it can have health implications, so it's being cautious of that. When it comes to recommendations, I usually recommend to people no gluten, no dairy, and looking at more low FODMAP, so it's decreasing stress on the body. Just from personal preference, I've found so many people coming off gluten just feel better, just because a lot of the food that we consume can be have poor nutrient quality. So we eat a lot of processed foods that affects the microbiome of the gut. And I find when they go off gluten, that settles that, but then it's really a process of improving their lifestyle and well-being. And that's the goal for everyone, in my opinion. Another question, in a program, we've got Z presses for 30 seconds and then others for 90. Why is that? So Z press is where you sit on the ground, legs straight, and you press the dumbbell up and above your head, challenging thoracic extension. Why 30 seconds and why 90? 90 probably because it's superset with another exercise. Because you've got a bigger rest, you can actually probably lift a little bit more weight. 30 seconds is me just being mean. Less rest, so you're managing that fatigue a lot more. So that technique is definitely going to break down and you won't lift as heavy. But knowing you, because I know who asked the question, you're definitely going to be someone who's like, well, I could do the same weight anyway. So it's really challenging you with that 30 seconds. Then when you do 90 seconds, it's a walk in the park. So number 4, what's the difference between a dumbbell L-sit shuttle press and a barbell? So the difference is dumbbell you can move through, and a barbell, it's different grip. So if you look tight in the shoulder, your hands will turn in. The barbell, it's straight, pushing it up and through. The second thing to do is with a barbell, you're likely to hit yourself in the chin, which I've definitely seen people do, and the dumbbell you won't. And also a barbell, the loading parameter for a dumbbell is smaller. So you go up by 1 kilo, for a barbell, you go up by 2.5. So loading pathway is very different. And I find with a third, with dumbbells, it creates a bit of challenge and stability of the shoulder through three dimensions for backside, where the barbell is just straight up and back. So we can get a lot more thoracic extension with the barbell, I find. And dumbbell will also work a bit more serratus, could do that, and wind the fascia up of the lat in a more neutral position. With a bit more serratus. Two different stimulations on the shoulder from lat insertion versus the serratus. Why Jefferson curls? Because they are amazing. They work. The Jefferson curl does three things. One, it works on articulation of the spine of all the vertebrae, so one at a time. Two, it stimulates the multifidi, so the spinal stabilizers. And three, it is a great weighted mobility exercise. So if I was to ever be stuck on an island and I could only pick 2 exercises, it would be, well, I'd ask if I could have 3, because I want to do passive hangs, Jefferson curls, and shoulder dislocates, because they're all weighted mobility exercises, which are great. It improves mobility, it makes you get stronger, and they don't require a lot of equipment, and you can pretty much do them anywhere. So that's our live Q&A. Hope you enjoyed. And until next time, adios, amigos.